Hi, this is Steph with Belladonna Dyes, and today we're going to make a center burst. As you can see by the crinkles on this shirt, it was going to be something else, but I changed my mind. So for this particular project, I started by centering the shirt using the sleeve inside the other sleeve technique. So I'm going to tuck one sleeve inside the other sleeve, line up all the seams along the shoulder, along the underarm. If there's a side seam, I line those up too. And then I want to make everything as smooth as possible. And what this does is it creates symmetry in your project. So from the front, you'll have equal saturation, and on the back, it'll be equal saturation. And then when you open it up from left to right, the pattern will be a mirror image. I made this project quite some time ago. It was in the height of summer, or well, at least the beginning of where our days were getting really super hot. So this shirt dried out and is pretty much bone dry right now. So it's giving me a little bit of the business. Now here's the thing with centering the shirt. This is the foundation of your project, and it's really important to get it right, or at least the very best that you can. Everything lined up so that you have that perfect mirror image. I have decided for this particular tutorial just to let things go at original speed. I'm not speeding anything up because I want you to see what actually goes into making a tie-dye shirt. I am not always 100% on point, and also I am not perfect. So sometimes I can center a shirt in a couple of minutes. Sometimes it takes me 5 minutes. Like I said, this being bone dry, it wasn't something that I'm used to, so it took me a minute to figure things out. And I think that you're going to run into the same thing when you're creating your tie-dye. I just want you to get a real life aspect of what I go through sometimes, especially sometimes when I do new projects, kind of like what this one's going to turn out to be. So I know I want this to be a center burst, and I thought, well, I have all of these round bowls that I use for ice dyeing. Why not just trace out a bowl in half and use that as my pattern? So I put my little protractor down underneath so I could get an idea of where I could make my lines on this one, and I traced out half of the bowl. I come down about a couple inches from the underarm because I don't ever want to put a project straight down on the belly button. I don't think that's a good look. I want this to be more like a chest piece. Once I traced it out, I started to pleat it, and I felt like it really wasn't working out quite right. So I'm gonna shift gears. So you're gonna see like different color pens. Just ignore this purple and go with what I'm doing. Now I'm just going to kind of step back here and just let it play out because this really was a major work in progress. This was the very first time that I tried to do the drawing out of the lines using the protractor and rulers and stuff like that, making a precision type center burst. So I had no idea what I was doing, you guys, and I was learning as I was going. Using the protractor instead of the bowl ended up working a lot better. When it came to marking out the lines, I was just going every 1 inch. This tool came as a recommendation from Margot Farnsworth. Do you guys remember me going live with Margot and doing all of the shibori work on the Turkish towels and stuff? Well, this is a tool that she likes to use, and so I got one as well. It comes from Amazon, and I do have a link down below in the description box for this tool. It's a great tool. You'll see me kind of fiddle with the center screw of it all. It's very, very stiff, and I kept trying to loosen it up because it wasn't wanting to flow very well, and it kept trying to like snag on the t-shirt a little bit. It didn't do any damage to the t-shirt, but it was just making it kind of hard to go with the flow. I'm not sure if this tool is necessary, but it is a great tool. I like it. But I think you could get away with your protractor and a yardstick all the same. But I do have it. I like it, and I recommend it. If you've got all the tools and gadgets in the world and like to have everything like I do, like meaning like if there's a new gadget you want to have it, this is a pretty good one. So these lines that I'm drawing on right at the center point of the shirt, not necessary. You can just go from the center point to your first line. But again, you guys, I had no idea what I was doing. So, it's like do as I say, not as I do. Now I went to the craft store and I got this little wooden dowel, and I thought, well, maybe that will make it really helpful for me to just use this dowel to kind of slide up underneath each line that I drew on and pick up each pleat. I tried that a little bit and it really didn't seem to work very well. But it's a good idea, okay? I tried that. Kurt Wallace uses some type of a plastic tool. I saw him do it, and I've always been thinking about it for like the last 3 years. I want to try something like that. You could use this dowel, you could slide your yardstick up underneath there, or you could just pinch it with your fingers and then go to the next line you drew on and just pleat it up that way. But it's fun to try new things and see if it's going to work. I'm not sure if I'll use the dowel again, but I have it in case I want to. My entire goal with pleating this shirt is trying to keep those red lines that I drew on nice and straight. So like bringing each red line to the next red line. And also that arc that I drew on, keeping that line very straight. Now I will say that pre-drawing on your lines, it does seem to be easier for me. Now this application, like what you're watching now, I really struggle, but again, it was my very first time. But having those preset lines does seem to make it a lot easier. Now the thing that you're going to run into whenever making any type of like a center burst, or even when you're doing like a double fan fold, when the pleats get really tiny in the center of the arc, they just run into themselves. And just do the very best you can to sort of line them all up right to the very center point of that arc. And I hope that makes sense. And as you watch this, you're going to see that that arc line that I drew on becomes very straight, and those pleats look pretty darn good. Even though I struggle with it, it eventually comes together. And that's the thing with it, you guys. You know, like the more I do this, the easier it's going to become. But again, being my very first time, not knowing really what I was doing, it took me a long time to do it, but I got through it, and the end results are going to work out really well. Now, I'm trying to emulate all of the other dyers that I see who make really awesome tie-dye, and they always clip their work off, and I don't have the clips that they use, so I was trying to use what I have. I don't even know if the clips are necessary, really. I mean, not for this, you know, for the stuff that they're doing, yeah, if they need clips, they need to use clips. But like, I probably just could have just, you know, tried to just keep going with it and, you know, stay on task and not, you know, mess up my shirt. And I think I spent more time trying to work with the clips than necessary. Had I just done what I needed to do, I probably could have just gotten through it just fine. So I don't know, but like look at that line there in the center. It's lining up really, really nice. And that is the main point of the pattern. That is the center burst that I'm creating. So temporarily, I'm going to be securing it by using tiny baby hair rubber bands just to keep those pleats in order. And look at how straight that arc just turned out. It's like a beautiful straight line. And now I'm working on those little tiny microscopic pleats down towards the center. And like I said, you just want to let them just run in to the same point. And that's going to be your very, very, very center burst. I wanted to leave this part in. It goes on for quite some time. I really was struggling with trying to get all of the pleats perfect and get it all secure, you know, in preparation for the next step. And I didn't want to edit it out. So I've sped it way up. I know it's probably hard to kind of watch and see what I'm doing, but I think it's better to leave it in than to remove it. Now I'm going to secure the project and get it ready for the ice dyeing process. And I'm using my sinew puller and my matching caddy set that I got from shop.boredomwithjen.com. I get all of my tools from Jen and John, and they are amazing and they really, really work. Okay, so sinew is a wax covered string and its purpose is to resist the dye. I am not looking for white lines on this project, but I am looking for breaks in the ice flows, like the dye flows, right? So I'm starting at the very tip, and we've been talking about this on the live streams, and I've been talking with Scott, and I've been mentioning it here and there. I want to figure out a way to make the center bursts or the side fan folds or the double fan folds that center to not just look like a big blob of dye. So what I did on this one is I used the tiny baby hair rubber bands, and then when it came to the sinew, I started up really close to the tip instead of like 2 or 3 inches back, okay? So I started, what is that, maybe like a half inch, and then I'm doing like a gradient. I'm working my way out. So if I did a half inch, then I go an inch, and then I go a half an inch, and then I go, a half inch past that, or like 1.5, then 2 inch, like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna do that kind of all the way down, just to sort of give like like a gradient on the pattern. And it's probably just easier to watch it than for me to try to explain it. As I'm wrapping my sinew and pulling it tight, there's a slack line that goes from one point to the other, and I'm using my pleating tool to go up underneath that slack line. That way the slack line doesn't become too tight across the top of the pleats. I'm trying everything that I can to avoid getting any white lines on this project. My puller ran out of sinew, so I'm going to rewind it, and I'm going to show you this in real time. I did not speed this up or anything. It's so super simple. And the importance of being able to refill your sinew puller within a matter of 30 seconds is you keep your same tension, your rhythm, everything. If you have to go and refill your sinew in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you might not come back to your project, or you come back 2 hours later and your tension isn't the same. Being able to do it in 30 seconds really makes a huge difference. I mean, look at that. Before I was even to finish my spiel, I'm already back to working. I seriously recommend the sinew puller and matching caddy set. I promise you, it's like so worth it. When I'm done wrapping the project with the sinew, if I have any like little tags of fabric, I like to use the tiny baby hair rubber bands just to pick those up and keep everything nice and tight and buttoned down. I'm going to do this project as an incline icedye. So I've got the bottom of the gutter down inside the tote and the top of the gutter is up hanging outside of the tote. And I'm adding my ice over top of the project. So this is called dye over ice. So I like to add enough ice to the project to where I don't see any more of the fabric showing through. And I'm using my industrial machine ice. So if you are interested in buying yourself an ice machine, I highly recommend this one. And I do have a link for it down below in the description box along with everything else that I use for tie-dye. So check out the description box, okay? Now this will be my very first time using this dye color. It is Wild Garden from Dye Spin and it's their Dark Horse line. The Dark Horse line is specifically meant for ice dyeing and it's supposed to have some really cool color splits. And when I looked on their webpage and I saw the splits on their swatch, I was super excited about this color. So I'm using my funnel scoop just to kind of add a nice generous layer, but I'm not overdoing it, you know, like I just want to add enough, but I don't want to like over add dye. So I'm just going to let you watch and see how much I use. Next, I give the project a quick little sprinkle of soda ash for good measure. Even though the shirt's been pre-soaked in the soda ash bucket, I'm adding so much ice to the project, I'm concerned that maybe with all that ice, it's going to lower the pH. You want the pH of your shirt to stay up around 10.5 to 11, okay? Then I set it aside and I let it batch at 70 degrees or higher for at least 24 hours, but this project batched for the full 48 hours, okay? So now when it comes to the rinse out process, I like to start by using cold water to rinse away any soda ash that might still be reacting within the fabric. And then I increase the water up to hot and I rinse until the water runs, you know, pretty much clear. From here, I take it to the washing machine and I like to use Kirillon. That's a textile detergent from Dharma Trading Company. I do a couple hot water cycles like that. And then I do a final hot water cycle using Millsoft. And Millsoft is a professional fabric softener. Then I will put it in the dryer and I'll iron it and we'll come back and we'll see the results. Well, here it is, guys. Here's our center burst after it's been washed and dried. And I think this turned out fantastic. Considering how much trouble it was for me to get through it, I think it turned out actually quite perfect. Maybe one of the best ones that I've ever made. Now, I could do without some of those white sinew lines on this, but they're so minimal that I'm willing to overlook them. This color, this Wild Garden from Dye Spin's Dark Horse line, is fantastic. You guys know that I love purple and green together, and all I had to do was sprinkle one color of dye to achieve this. Now, I look forward to using this color in other applications because I know that in different patterns it will display itself differently, like in a watercolor ice dye or a spiral, you know, it'll show itself differently, but it's so pretty. So it has a really like bright electric green, like it is electric green, and then it has some magenta, and it has some lavender and some chartreuse. Just super duper beautiful. And when you're working with colors like purple and green together, you run the risk of having a lot of brown, and this color doesn't produce that. So I'm super excited, like I said, to play with it again. Like you can see, you know, some of that chartreuse. There's lavenders and pinks and bright greens, emerald greens. Yeah, I'm excited. Very fun. Can't wait to try it again with just a different pattern and see what it'll do. So, what do you guys think of this center burst? And thank you so much for watching it all and, you know, just understanding that, hey, I'm learning every day with a new project just like all of you are. And so I hope that you can take something away from this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a thumbs up, and click the bell and set it to all. That way you get notified of future uploads. And remember, have fun tie-dyeing!